Hi, everyone. How are we all doing today? Good. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Riley Smith. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Chapters here at the University of Utah. We're just so excited to have you all here. I think it's going to be a really great panel today. We have some amazing individuals up here, deans from the University of Utah, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. So I'm just so excited for you guys to be here. Thank you. Higher education is evolving rapidly, and universities must adapt to prepare students for an increasingly complex and technology-driven world. Today's discussion will explore how these academic leaders are shaping the future of their colleges by expanding programs, enhancing student learning, and integrating cutting-edge research and technology. We'll examine how interdisciplinary collaboration is driving innovation, how universities are addressing concerns about the return on investment in higher education, and how strategic growth initiatives are creating new opportunities for students and faculty. From workforce readiness to AI-driven advancements, today's conversation will highlight the ways in which these colleges will continue to impact industries, communities, and the broader Utah landscape. Pretty exciting. I'm excited. Allow me to introduce Mike Hale. Mike E. Hale is a four-time graduate of the University of Utah, earning a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, a Bachelor of Science in Information Systems, a Master of Business Administration, and a Master of Business Creation. If you didn't know, the MBC, Master of Business Creation, was invented at the University of Utah. Since graduating, he has been actively involved with the university, serving in leadership roles on multiple boards at the University of Utah and elsewhere. He served for 10 years on the David Eccles Alumni Network Board, serving as vice chair in 2022 to 2023 and chair in 2023 to 2024. He is a founding board member of the Master of Business Creation Alumni Association and the Holiday City Business Advisory Board. He currently serves on the University of Utah Board of Governors. Please join me in welcoming Mike Hale. Next to Mike is Dr. Marla De Jong. She is Dean and Louis H. Perry Presidential Endowed Chair at the University of Utah College of Nursing. She leads the college's academic programs, oversees a $62 million research portfolio, and serves on key university and healthcare boards. A distinguished leader in nursing, Dr. De Jong retired as a colonel after nearly 29 years in the U.S. Air Force, where she held leadership roles in clinical practice, research, and education, including serving as Dean of the U.S. Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine and Associate Dean for Research at the Uniformed Services University. Her work has influenced healthcare policy, education, and military and civilian clinical practices. Dr. De Jong was inducted as a fellow in the American Academy of Nursing in 2012. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing from Grandview College, a Master's of Science from the University of Maryland, and a PhD from the University of Kentucky. Please join me in welcoming Dr. De Jong. Right here in the center is Dr. Peter Trapa, who received his PhD from MIT and held postdoctoral appointments at Harvard University and the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton before joining the University of Utah's Department of Mathematics in 2001. He served as chair of the department from 2011 to 2017 and as chair of the Department of Physics and Astronomy from 2018 to 2019. In 2019, he became Dean of the College of Science. In his free time, he enjoys skiing, hiking, and exploring Utah with his wife and two children. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Peter Trapa. Dr. Arnab Chakraborty is Dean of the College of Architecture and Planning at the University of Utah and a professor of city and metropolitan planning. A recognized leader in higher education, he is dedicated to advancing research, teaching, and public engagement in architecture, design, and urban planning. Previously, Dr. Chakraborty served as Associate Dean and Professor of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Illinois at Champaign, am I pronouncing that correctly? Yeah, maybe. Where he established faculty mentoring programs, secured research funding, and enhanced academic programs. His research focuses on land use policy and planning processes that promote just and sustainable communities. An internationally recognized scholar, Dr. Chakraborty has published over 50 articles and book chapters and secured more than $2 million in competitive grants. His work has influenced national initiatives, including the Federal Highway Administration's Next Generation Scenario Planning Guide. Please join me in welcoming Dean Chakraborty. I don't even feel worthy to be on the stage with all of you. You're so accomplished, and we're so excited to have you here. I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Mike, take it away.
Thanks, Riley. Yeah, I agree with Riley. I'm so grateful to be up here on stage with you guys. After speaking with you earlier this week, there's so much success and so much excitement going on at the campus. There's just too much to talk about. But, Peter, in May, your college is opening a $100 million applied science complex. Can you tell us how that'll improve the student experience, improve outcomes, and benefit the broader community? And also, if you could tie in Taylor's vision, that would be wonderful.
Well, thanks, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here with my distinguished colleagues, and one of the really nice things about this event is I got to meet Mike for the first time, so thanks. Yeah, we're excited. We've got a new applied science complex opening. So if you can picture it in your head, Pioneer Memorial Theater, just to the north of that, there's kind of this green space between Pioneer Memorial Theater and President Circle. We're renovating the historic Stewart building. That's about a 100-year-old building there as part of this project. It's 40,000 square feet. And then there's a brand new 100,000 square foot state-of-the-art science building that's going to really be the front door to the west side of campus there. That building, or that complex of buildings, sort of encircle a courtyard, which has, right there by Cottom's Gulch with big trees. So it's going to be really, really spectacular, and we're excited about it. And we're excited about the students who are going to go through there. So virtually every STEM student on campus is going to take classes in that building, something like 53 degree programs. Every computer scientist, every future engineer, every future nursing graduate and pre-medical scientist will take classes in that building. And it is designed with the students front and center and their STEM training in mind. That's a perfect place to segue, as Mike was hinting at, into Taylor's larger vision. I think you've all, well, first of all, Mike knows it up close and personal after 4 degrees in the David Eccles School of Business. You've seen Taylor operate there. Many probably business alums in the room have seen all the great things that Taylor did in the business school and now is scaling that over the last 3.5 or so years, I guess, into his tenure as president. And it's no surprise that he's driving innovation and taking the U to really new heights. So his vision is one of growth, 40,000 students, and we're well on that trajectory. We're closing in on 30,000 undergraduates, so we're about 27,000 now, a little further to go on the graduate student side. So it'll be a period of student growth. He is focusing on research growth as well. $1 billion in externally funded research is the target. We're about $700 million right now. And if you look at the straight line progression, we're going to get there. And then finally, one of the really key pillars is unsurpassed societal impact. So all of this is being wrapped around his vision to take the University of Utah to be a top 10 public institution by 2030. So there are a lot of pressures on higher education. You open any newspaper or any browser or any TV screen, you'll see that what the headwinds are. This is partly demographic, the college-age population in the country is shrinking. It's partly people are questioning the value proposition of higher education, as Riley was alluding to. And Taylor's attentive to all of those things. Even the news that you read about cut and reallocation in the state legislature, he's extremely attentive to all of those concerns and is really positioning the U to be a leader and a model for a public research higher education, public research university. And positioning ourselves not to be in this reactionary mode to these external pressures, that we're seeing in higher education, but to be a leader that sustains whatever choppy water is out there, not reacts to it. So we're excited about that. The building is part of that vision. It's part of the strategic growth. It's part of the investment in STEM. It's part of the investment. I didn't talk about the research enterprise that will take place there. Part of the growth and research, and it's positioned at a place where it'll be highly visible and we'll have lots of outreach activities and this unsurpassed societal impact. So
yeah, that's incredible, Peter, and congratulations on having that in May. Arnab, we talked briefly about the games program and how it's leading the world, and you were mentioning that you're building new studios that would give the students potential to do shared licensing, which in my mind lines up with Taylor's vision of entrepreneurship, especially with Utah being such an entrepreneurial leader in the nation. Can you elaborate on how this may work and what you envision for the future of it?
Sure, thank you for that question. If I may just say, I'm also very grateful to share this stage with my distinguished colleague and yourself, and also this room with you all. I'm relatively new in Utah and relatively new in my role. It's been about a year and a half. But the tremendous support I've gotten from the broader community and the professionalism and excellence of the development professionals to sort of help us and support us and lead us in these events and making sure that our work is complementing what the university at large does and what the community aspires us to do is really inspiring and humbling. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of you as well. And in response to your question regarding games program, which is one of the 4 divisions in my college, the other 3 are architecture, planning, and design, is a fairly new addition. It joined us at the beginning of this academic year, which was July of 2024. But to explain where we're going with the licensing and other studio facilities, I need to step back a little bit, and I'm going to channel Peter's skill on asking you to imagine 15 years ago when this was just launching. Games is a fairly new program at the U, but also as a field and as a discipline. I mean, it started mostly out of folks playing and practicing. And imagine 15 years ago, a bunch of folks who were enthusiastic gamers themselves thinking about, hey, what it would be to create and establish a program at the U. And these folks were, some of them were in the Film and Media Studies in the College of Fine Arts. Some of them were in the College of Engineering with the Department of Computer Science, which has a very distinguished history as in graphics, computer graphics, and programming. So it was really a good way for those folks to come together and establish this gaming program. It started as a bachelor's program. It added a master's program about 10 years ago, so 5 years since its origination. And over time, it has moved colleges from being split between fine arts and engineering, and right before they joined us in engineering, they went from being, a program with about 15 to 20 students to being one of the top 6 majors at the U. They have about 1,200 students. They are ranked top #1 public program worldwide and top 3 across all programs, both for masters and for undergraduate programs. And in that work, they accomplished that with a very small amount of number of faculty and staff. They're actually, if you look at the student credit hours per faculty and per staff, they're probably one of the least in that sense. So recently, as part of finding them a home that sort of represents their breadth of interdisciplinarity. They have folks who do computer programming and game making, but they also have graphic designers and narrative and storytelling experts, folks who work on game ethics and looks at how games influence society and how society influences games. And all of those, social science and humanities dimensions, a very interdisciplinary program, which is why Taylor and Provost Montoya and us worked on moving them to my college, which we believe sort of complements their interdisciplinarity in the way the architecture and planning fields represents a culmination of various disciplines like design and sociology and humanities, architectural history, and such. So we were, the Division of Games in particular, were awarded a $25 million in support from the President and Provost office. And part of this is support, just recognizing how much the program has accomplished with how little, and really to scale that up. But it's also an investment, and the main purpose of this investment is to help meet the goals that the university has, that Taylor has, on increasing enrollment, in making our program world-class. And in Games' case, which is already world-class, but since it's been largely a teaching program, to add a very significant research dimension. So we're actually adding up to 20 faculty positions in research within Games. And as we onboard these faculty members over the coming 3 to 5 years, we're also going to be adding new spaces and capacities and technologies that keeps us at the forefront of this field and discipline. So investing in studios and spaces is really part of that. We're currently ongoing a process to think about how some of this could use the city center building that the university has recently acquired downtown. We'd love to have maybe not 100 million, but something in the tens of millions order, so we could build more facilities. But it's also a way to reach out to the industry and to reach out to the community. There is quite a bit of interest in the companies that are leading edge of games development on creating pipelines with our students. There's significant amount of that happening already, but they want to come work in our labs to give students their projects and their interests. And we just want to make sure that we have the expertise to handle all the intellectual property and the rights that need to be navigated in that space. So we're currently in the process of appointing an associate dean with oversight of research and innovation and working with the campus licensing office. So it's a multidimensional problem, but we got a great start, and it's phenomenal to have that support from campus and community. Thank you.
Yeah, so much excitement. I mean, it's incredible. And speaking of funding, Marla was actually able to secure some funding to help with mental health. And Marla's been with the university for about 5 or so years, is that correct? And in her time, and alongside of Taylor's vision, or in line with it rather, she was able to actually grow the College of Nursing, had one class actually grow 25% in 1 year, which is absolutely incredible. Congratulations. And one thing I was hoping to ask is, you talked about partners on our phone call and the importance of collaborating them. Can you kind of tell us about what you've been doing as dean to help work with these partners and prepare them for the workforce?
Yes, thank you. And like my colleagues, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for taking part of your day to join us. I think it's really important for us to come together as a university community and to be updated on things that we're working on. We like to hear from you because you have ideas for how we can make improvements to our programs and to our research, and I hope that you enjoy the things that we're sharing with you today. So thank you very much. So many of you know that with the COVID pandemic, there was a great need for many different types of healthcare workers, including nurses. And in Utah, like most states, we had a significant shortage of nurses. There were lots of vacant positions. Many of the facilities were using traveler nurses to provide patient care to shore up some of those shortages. So what we did as a college is we said to ourselves, how can we make a small contribution to increasing the nursing workforce in Utah? And so we, at our college, we offer the bachelor's, master's, doctor of nursing practice, and PhD degrees in nursing, as well as a gerontology degree, actually, that individuals who aren't nurses can take. But in terms of nursing, the increase that we were able to do is we increased our enrollment in our Bachelor's of Science program in nursing by 25%. So what we were doing is we were enrolling students twice a year. Students could start with us in the fall, or they could start with us in the spring. And although students went to school year-round to facilitate timely degree completion, we didn't actually enroll new students in the summer. But starting in 2022, we started enrolling students in the summer, and so now we enroll summer, fall, and spring. All of our students across all of those degree programs go to school year-round, and that enabled us to increase the number of bachelor's prepared nurses by, as I mentioned, 25%. Certainly that doesn't solve the nursing shortage in Utah, but it makes a nice contribution. And one of the things that our partner hospitals and outpatient clinics and other healthcare agencies like about that is then there are also graduates 3 times a year. And so some schools only graduate students in the spring, but we graduate in August, in December, and in May. So there's this pretty steady stream of graduates. Partnerships were essential to us being able to do this. What you may know is our bachelor's students all complete 900 of clinical hours as part of their nursing education. And that's not students showing up at a hospital and just randomly taking care of patients. They all have to have faculty mentors, and they have to have qualified preceptors who help them learn all the things that they need to learn as a nurse. And our Doctor of Nursing practice students have 1,000 hours of clinical time. So we rely very heavily on our partnerships, and we are especially grateful to be part of an academic healthcare system, University of Utah Health, because we have several hospitals, we have many outpatient clinics, we have community-based care, and so our students are able to complete those clinical experiences there. So we're very grateful for them hosting our students. We're very grateful for the preceptors, and we're grateful from a science perspective that we can conduct much of the research that we do in those clinical environments as well. Certainly we have other clinical partners throughout the Salt Lake Valley, and indeed even in rural parts of Utah, and so that makes it all possible to provide high value, high quality education for all of our graduates. I also will just take the opportunity to say that in spite of the pandemic and in spite of increasing our enrollment, our pass rates on the RN licensure exam as well as the nurse practitioner and nurse midwifery certification exams very high, well above the national average, and so we are very proud of that quality because we know that when our graduates leave us, they're well prepared to advance health, to care for those who are sick or injured, to prevent illness in our great state of Utah.
Yeah, you're doing a wonderful job, Marla. And speaking about advancing healthcare, you know, we had spoken briefly about AI, and we are in Silicon Slopes, so there's no conversation that's not going to have AI somewhat involved in it. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about personalized cancer treatments, mental illness treatments, and then Peter, you had a different spin on it where you're kind of helping foster different learning styles with the students and informing the professors. After Marla, I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
So with the caveat that I am not an AI expert, although I do use it increasingly frequently, we really are leveraging AI within our college, and I'm going to go with the fact that most of the people here have an appreciation for AI and understand how we can use AI in great ways that advance education, research, health, wellness, and so forth. As a little sidebar, though, I will tell you that I was at a nursing doctoral conference, a nationwide conference of deans and associate deans just a couple weeks ago, and there's a lot of negativity in the academic nursing community still about AI. And AI is bad, and we shouldn't let our students use AI, and students are using AI inappropriately. I will tell you that's not our college. We are embracing AI, and in fact, our professional organization, the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, is encouraging nursing schools to use AI in its curriculum development, in its way to provide patient care, in ways to help us synthesize just incredible amounts of information and science that we have to wade through to decide what's the best way to care for patients. So our college, for example, has a nursing informatics program. This is well beyond AI in its strictest sense, but we are offering that. And then through new curriculum guidance, we are embedding AI into all of our courses. So starting in the fall, we have a whole new curriculum for master's, bachelor's, DNP, and PhD, and all of those courses will have AI components. And in fact, our professional organization says that we must graduate students who have competencies and sub-competencies in AI. I could talk a long time about this, but just a quick example to show one of the really, emerging areas in healthcare that AI is being used. So I have some faculty members who, for example, who have great expertise in AI and all the different forms of AI. But as you know, our human brains only have a capacity to approach problems and use data and analyze data in so many ways. And yet there are so many data in terms of how we care for patients that it's hard to make sense out of all that. Cancer. My guess is that probably everyone in this room in some way, shape, or form has been affected by cancer. You know someone who's had cancer. You've had a family member who've had cancer. It's a very common disease, as you know. It's also a complex disease. And perhaps more so than many diseases, the relationship between the patient and the family and the healthcare providers is really exquisite in saying, what are the patient goals? How are we managing cancer? And we have another faculty member who's leading a very large interdisciplinary teams with the goal of keeping patients with cancer at home, because that's where patients generally want to be. And how are we supporting them, and how are we supporting their families? But in terms of the evidence, patients have a lot of involvement in making treatment decisions. Do they want to participate in a clinical trial? Do they want to accept chemotherapy or radiation? What are the risk-benefit profiles of those therapies? What are the prognostics of survival at certain time points? And we now have faculty who are using AI to take these incredible amounts of data that are gleaned from patients throughout the world in many cases, and using that to say to patients and their healthcare team, here's what we know about the prognosis of your cancer if you proceed down this treatment pathway. Or here's the prognosis if you treat down this. Or here's how this might affect your quality of life. Here's how this might impact your relationship with your family. So lots of emerging ways for us to use AI in a way that patients can feel really involved in their care versus accepting what the healthcare team thinks might be best for them, and using data in really good ways. And this can then, of course, be translated to other heart failure or patients who've had stroke or any number of other healthcare conditions. Thanks.
Wonderful. Peter?
Yeah, so on the topic of AI, the landscape is changing so fast, it's hard to know. We saw the DeepSeek freak out last week. Do we really need all the energy for these data centers? And it's hard to hold on to something that is going to survive all these this changing landscape. But what is absolutely clear is AI is going to be the greatest enhancement of human productivity that we've ever seen, by far. We're using it on a daily basis. Most of us already, certainly our kids are using it on a daily basis. Our students are using it on a daily basis. And we have to do two things. We have to harness that productivity enhancement in the work that we do, educating students, and we also have to educate students in a way that will not be replaced by that productivity enhancement. The education has to weave AI into it because it's a productivity enhancement. We got to use all the tools at our disposal, but we have to produce graduates who are AI proof in some sense. So I want to talk about the first, what we're doing to use AI in the education and the training of students. So we're designing this now. We'll pilot in the spring. And we're going to pilot in some of our large calculus courses, for example. Every student will have their own personalized chatbot. These chatbots will be trained on the material that the instructor provides, whether it's video material, whether it's textbooks, the syllabus, all of it will be, the bots will be running over this. Every student will have their own AI bot, and they can ask anything of that bot. And the bot will not give them the answers to their homework problem. That's what ChatGPT does. But it will instead lead them through, oh, well, did you try what? You should try this, and you should try that. And maybe some of your kids are already using Conmigo, which is just kind of this off-the-shelf way to lead students to the solution, not just give them the solution. And so rather than having them use ChatGPT, which is give them the answer, they'll be encouraged to use this version, which say, oh, and by the way, that correlates to this time in the video that you saw yesterday in class. It's going to be trained on the materials that are provided. Then there will be a virtual TA. There'll be a chatbot that'll run around and look at what all the students are doing and synthesize that and provide that information to the human instructor. And the human instructor will see, oh, they're all asking about the quadratic equation. I need to go back and do a better job explaining that. And so I think this enhancement of instructor productivity is something that is going to be durable. We cannot stop students from using AI. We better just embrace that and use it and integrate it in the way that I said to understand where their holes in their knowledge are, and then we feed that up to the human instructor, who really is the master teacher, who can synthesize all that for a better educational experience. And then maybe later we'll have a chance to talk about how we're AI proofing the education that we're providing to students. The big idea there is something around project-based learning, which we might have time to talk about later. So
let's hope so. It's fascinating. Arnab, do you have anything you want to comment on that? Or sure. I was going to ask you a question about research, if not. So.
No, I'll comment on
that.
Great. I'll try to add to what my colleagues here have already kind of described very specifically and comprehensively. I would say, from the fields that I represent standpoint, there's sort of two parts to it. One is how the fields are evolving and how we train students. It's kind of using the similar framework that Peter mentioned. On the fields part, a lot of work that was previously being done by humans are now being replaced by AI. So if you're doing, say, sort of a preliminary rendering of a design proposal, buildings, communities, products, a lot of that sketch level drawings are now being done by AI. And I think that's actually an advancement. And our students are getting trained on doing that. And the community and the professional field is evolving. The big benefit of that is now there can be a whole lot of different scenarios that are cheaply and relatively robustly produced than what could be done. Previously, with contract, come up with 3 rendered scenarios for a huge amount of cost, and that may not satisfy any client, and it suddenly delays the project by another 2 months to come up with something that responds to questions that came up for the first scenario. So this process is significantly more enhanced, and that's just one example in architecture. It can extend to various different uses. On the student side, or even on our side as educators and lifelong learners, if I could use one word to capture it, encapsulate it, that word would be agility. I think we just need, AI proofing, being able to respond to this landscape as it evolves. I think we just need to train the next generation to be more agile. And you had I think Riley had a comment around ROI that we might discuss, and that's an interesting, complex conversation that we're having in the field. Our employers want students to get very specific skills historically. We as academics want to build better citizens for the future, critical thinkers. Yep. And we meet somewhere midway. Yes, we train them in software, but we also train them to be critical thinkers. And I think where that pendulum shifts a little bit is going to be an interesting question to observe, because I think the students really need to become more critical thinkers and adaptable to these changes while they keep getting some of the fundamental skills that they need to succeed in specific disciplines. One other thing I would add very quickly, I actually agree completely with responding strongly to the naysayers, as Marla noted, but at the same time, I think we ought to also pay attention to some unintended consequences that AI could have, specifically how it might sort of exacerbate existing biases of computational systems, and in a way that it disadvantages certain groups or older folks or certain demographics. So as some of our disciplines, we're very integrative in how they bring research from different fields and then puts it to practice. It's really that rubber meets the road kind of space where we need to observe what AI is doing and then have the human component in there to make sure that we're watching out for unintended consequences. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree completely. For a second there, I thought you were going to bring up Terminator, but I'm glad you went the easy route there.
Well, it fits.
And one thing that we should make a note of is part of Taylor's vision is to proactively adapt as an institution. And you can just see with these three leaders that they are looking at AI as a tool. I mean, no one can fight it, and they're not being a naysayer. And I think it's a real, it just shows your guys' leadership, and I'm really happy to see you guys where you're at. But Arnab, one thing you did mention is you just were talking about the Games College and how excited you are for research. The Department of Planning is a nationally recognized top leading institution in research. Can you talk about that excitement within the Games College and maybe talk about why the Department of Planning got to where it's at and how you plan to utilize those lessons in the Games program?
Sure. So, we cannot be a top 10 societally impactful, nationally recognized university without really being at the forefront of research. And most of our programs, if not all, across the university, do a great job at research. In my college, and this is across the college, we have folks who are getting recognitions and externally competitive grants from NSF Career Awards to Department of Energy and collaborative projects with all sorts of disciplines within the university, as well as community-based organization, nonprofit, all the way to companies. What we need to do is support these individuals better and more to do what they're already good at doing and recruit strategically that enhances our existing capacities. So some of our investments are actually going into actually hiring folks who are working at the intersection of AI and cognition and, developing products, spaces, virtual spaces even in gaming case, or real spaces in architecture and planning's case, and there's quite a bit of overlap. I would say our sort of effort over the last year and a half, and which started actually quite a bit before, of pursuing this partnership between architecture, games, planning, design, it is very intentional and strategic in this regard. I mean, architecture nowadays, a graduating student, 60% of the jobs require them to have some degree of virtual reality design skills, and we could not train these students on our own within a school of architecture with these skills. We need partnership with folks in computer science, folks who work on sort of the virtual dimension of this, and other technological advances. So this recent collaboration in games is really helping us think about what those areas of overlap are and how we can pursue it further. Another area with, again, planning in particular is technology, smart cities, and thinking about how that analytical capability could be integrated with, more traditional disciplinary understanding of economics and sociology and such. And that work is happening right now. We're actually looking for a faculty member in collaboration with an institute on campus called Scientific and Computing Imaging Institute, SCI. And that's a shared partnership to hire for somebody who works at the intersection of urban analytics and planning to think about how transportation systems, how signaling systems, how data on any sort of urban complex system that feeds into the decision making of this could be leveraged and analyzed better than we have done in the past. We're also setting up some administrative structures to support this work. So the search we're doing for an associate dean of research and innovation, some work we're doing on grant writing support, and upgrading our facilities sort of fall into that. We're also recruiting students who are interested more and more in doing more research. I mean, we historically have been a profession-serving college, which I think we will continue to retain, and that's where we get a lot of value. But we also want to create the opportunities through scholarships, through endowments, through better facilities for attracting and then training future researchers and scholars and academics.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Arnab's in a really pivotal point with that college, building out a new strategic plan that has been updated for a couple years, and so there's a lot of opportunity ahead, and it's going to be incredible. And Marla, one thing I was hoping you could talk about is nursing has such real-world impacts that affect people's lives so intimately. Do you have any research going on in your colleges that you would say you're particularly excited about and would love to share with the audience?
Yes, I could talk about this for probably an hour or longer, so I'll have to be selective, unfortunately. But I think one of the things that I'm so proud about for the research that we're doing within the College of Nursing is it's very real world, and I think it's very understandable to the patients who were privileged to serve and their families. So, for example, we have a very strong area of research in family-centered care, family caregiving. And as, I won't make you raise your hands, but so many people in our state, work that we've done in collaboration with the Kempsey Gardner Center, are providing care, whether it's to elderly parents or whether it's a child who has special needs or whether it's someone who's had a health concern but will require an extended time to rehabilitate and heal. And that is takes a lot of work, right? It takes a lot of care coordination to manage appointments. Sometimes you're missing work yourself to do that. And so we have a lot of work being done in that area. And providing resources to family members, understanding how this works. A component of that is a strength in palliative care. We know, for example, that too often individuals don't receive palliative care until too close to the end of life. And so our family caregivers then don't have the benefit from the services that could help ease that burden of caregiving. We also have bereavement care. And one of our faculty members has developed incredible expertise in this area. And in fact, the state of Utah is contracting with her to provide a lot of bereavement care within the state. So for example, you may know that in the K through 12 education system, there's been an increase in the number of students as well as teachers who sadly have taken their own life. And that is very traumatic within those school systems, and a lot of times principals and administrators don't feel like they have the skills or the background to provide that care and support for students and teachers. So she has gone throughout this entire state developing, she developed a training program and has trained hundreds of administrators how to support students. We also know that many of individuals who have difficulty later in life with mental health and behavioral health concerns develop those in childhood. And so we're doing work through our mental health, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners to think about how do we provide health care to students in high schools so that we can think about prevention, so that we can identify early who might be at risk. We have faculty members who are doing really revolutionized the way that we hope to provide cancer care in Utah. So I alluded to this earlier, but too often patients with cancer are in the hospital. And we know that those patients don't want to be in the hospital. They'd rather be at home with their family, in their communities, where people who they've had relationships with can visit. And so we have a nurse practitioner, pharmacy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, registered nurse, whole system of providing very intense care and oversight. Some of it involves remote monitoring and so forth, by which we can provide care and keep people at home. The results of that work have been phenomenal. Fewer patients are admitted, fewer patients are seen in the emergency department. The cost of care, as you can imagine, is far less. Patients and their families are far happier. There's less anxiety, there's less depression, there's better quality of life. And that all contributes to the best possible outcomes for not only patients and families. At the other end of the spectrum, we have nurses who, for example, are studying how children with cancer report their symptoms. So many times, as you can imagine, when a child is seen with a physician or a nurse practitioner, and the questions are, well, how are you doing? What's your activity level been? What's your pain level be like? They don't know. But we're testing an app that kids can have on a phone, because every kid has a phone, right? And they can report those symptoms real time, and so that we can better manage that. We have a lot of work that's being done, too, in making sure that we are attending to the social needs of our patients. So we know that, for example, the zip code that you live in, the education that children receive, whether individuals have access to the internet, whether they have reliable food, healthy food every day, this affects their health outcomes. And so we are doing a lot of work to make referrals to community resources when needed, to help educate patients about how they can access all of these everyday things in life that many of us take for granted, but that we know affects how often patients are seen in clinic, how often they're hospitalized, and even how long they live. And so we're really excited about that work. And then I'll just end, I could say so many more things, but I'll end that we're doing a lot of work with mothers as well, thinking about childbearing women. Many of you know that sometimes as part of the pregnancy and post-pregnancy, there's incidents of anxiety and depression. In rural Utah, this has been challenging because there is a shortage of mental health providers in rural Utah. So some of this we're doing by telemental health, and we find that our patients actually are really happy to be able to access mental health online. It's interesting because many of our practitioners say that people share more information than they might if they were just sitting across from each other. And we, through some state funding that we've received, are now providing that care in, for example, Carbon County and Duchesne County, in areas where there were no providers that had the ability to provide care, who had the ability to provide psychotherapy or to prescribe mental health medications when medications were indicated either short-term or long-term. So having real impact of taking that research to the bedside as they speak through a variety of modalities, increasing the reach that we have throughout the state. I will stop in the interest of being respectful to my colleagues, but there's many, many more things that we could talk about. But I guess just in summary to say, real-world application. This isn't research for the sake of doing research. This is research knowing what the healthcare needs of our state and in the Intermountain West are, and saying, how do we fill those research gaps in ways that promote health, healing, wellness, and so forth. So thanks for that question.
Marla, thank you, and it's so wonderful to see you so excited about it. I mean, it's awesome. Peter, I got a question for you. So earlier you kind of touched on your SRI program. And I was wondering if you could share with the audience what that is, how it's going to impact, or how it has impact PhD researchers, faculty researchers, and maybe if it'll trickle down into undergraduate, and how you see the long-term trend going.
Yeah, so if you zoom out, the big picture is that we want to provide, just to return to what I was saying in the last question, we want to provide our students with an education which is future-proof, AI-proof. And one of the ways that we see to do that is to bring teams of students together to tackle a real-world problem or a research problem that involves not only discipline-specific content knowledge, you know, what's going on in the laboratory, but also the other skills, whether it's whether it's critical thinking or systems thinking or entrepreneurial thinking, all the other skills that teams in the workplace bring to problems every day. So the way that we've approached this is we designed, well, we kind of did a landscape analysis, and then we designed and piloted, and now we've scaled what we call our Science Research Initiative, and it's for entering students. We want to get students thinking about this kind of team-based, project-based learning early in their careers. So every entering student in the College of Science has the opportunity to participate in this program. There's a 1 credit hour course that they take their first semester on campus. We scholarship all of them, so there's no financial barrier to enter. And then they are placed in research teams starting the second semester of their first year, and then they stay together as a cohort into their second year before rolling off into more traditional opportunities, whether it's internships or co-ops or things like that. So these projects are designed to be braided into the fundamental math and science classes that they're learning in their curriculum, but they're also, the high-level intellectual input is coming from our researchers, our faculty researchers. So we're really braiding together the research side of things and the curricular and educational side. And this is what we see as the way of imbuing the students with the skills that they need beyond the really specific content knowledge that they might have in STEM or science in particular. Now, this attracted the state's attention, and we have a companion program which we're piloting this spring, and we're going to ramp up in the fall. This is in partnership with the life sciences industry. It's not for entering students, it's for students who are getting close to graduation, and the projects are not coming from our faculty and our researchers, they're coming from our industry partners. So we source the projects from the life sciences industry, biotech, medical devices, and then our team our kind of infrastructure, our team designs the projects that are appropriate for the students, and in this way we prepare students to enter the workforce in this particular example. So I'm pretty excited about this. I think this is a big idea. I think it's bigger than the disciplines that I mentioned or the industries I mentioned. It's a very portable idea. It's a lot more nimble than redesigning traditional curriculum. You can plug in these ideas, these projects to address needs in more or less in real time for industry partners. So I'm excited about that. I think that's a big idea. So.
I mean, it sounds exciting, and I think it may be time for question and answers. Riley, if you want to take it from here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? Perfect. And if you wouldn't mind speaking on the microphone for the cameras to pick up.
Thanks to all of you for your wonderful insight. I have a question about research, in particular how AI is impacting academic research. There has been reports in the media about an explosion of research coming from academia in general. It turns out that a lot of those research are bogus, partly influenced by the use of AI. So as you pursue quality research in the quest of being part of the top 10, like you mentioned, how do you plan on evaluating the quality of the research that's coming out of the U to make sure that you're not falling in the same trap?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So at the heart of it is that AI provides this incredible enhancement to human abilities, and therefore it's being used by researchers across the board to advance their own research agendas, and I think a great example is AlphaFold. Structural biochemistry was an extremely difficult problem. Google came in with AlphaFold and totally revolutionized the problem of finding the structure of proteins, protein complexes. But the flip side of that is kind of this fake news issue that it's very easy to generate things that at least look credible, but are completely bogus, as Yusuf was saying. So what are the internal standards, or what is the internal sort of vetting that is happening in the scientific community to keep up with this, to keep track of what is credible and what is accurate and credible and what is not? And so we're running up against a real crisis, as I think you're alluding to, that the traditional model of peer review is breaking down. So peer review is kind of the gold standard of establishing credibility. If you submit a paper, it's reviewed by a panel of experts that are anonymous, and they vouch for the credibility, or they say, no, this is bogus. But that, because of the sheer explosion, the sheer volume, is under stress. And I don't really have a good answer, except that we're going to have to either find a way to make peer review work better in this new age, or we're going to have to find some kind of substitute, probably AI-based substitute, to to address this. So.
Hello, thank you for being here. I'm Leslie Bolton. I work at the University of Utah in the U Career Success. This morning I heard about a defunding at Hill Air Force Base that has a program for STEAM, the STEAM program, for students, K through 12, that is able to learn more about the STEAMs, so in engineering and science and all of that. If these programs that I know I have helped students go to organizations on my part to fill positions and jobs, part-time jobs to help these other organizations, what can we do on the higher education? As we know, if students are not getting the excitement in industry, they may not decide to go to higher education or go to college if they're not getting it at that. What can we do on the higher education to help students then go to college, and especially for young girls and women in the STEM field? I hope that made some sense.
So I'll make a few comments. I haven't seen the news report, but I would go so far as to say for my colleagues that we are all advocates for STEM, for science, for technology, for engineering, for math, for use of evidence in the work that we do regardless of our discipline. We do know, and you may have heard, that when you look at some of the national poll data, there has been an erosion in the US public about the value of higher education, about the value of science, the role that science should have in making, in informing decisions or policy, or in, my interest area, healthcare. And there's been an erosion in the I can't remember the question exactly, but the perception of how higher education itself benefits society and so forth. And I think I'm speaking for us all when we know the value of higher education, we know the value of science, and it's so important for us to advocate for that and to do all kinds of things, as Peter was just mentioning, from the time a student enters college to involving them and engaging them real world in science. I would also say, and this is a perfect place to do this, is it's important for all of us, regardless, in my opinion, to be able to articulate to the public, people we work with, what is the value of our college degree, right? And so we all have our respective college degrees, but we learned discipline-specific information, but we learned so much more than that, right? And I think if we can explain why the value of higher education is so important, and the fact that it's not just about learning skills or competencies, but higher education changes our worldview, how we approach problems, and this is what's going to be so important. I know within nursing and within University of Utah Health, for example, we have initiatives that are really encouraging K through 12 to have an interest in health professions. So for example, you may have heard of something called Saturday Academy. We just hosted one in the College of Nursing last month, and it's for K through 12 students who have an interest in any number of health professions, careers. And so we are trying to show the value of science, the value of a college degree. In nursing, we know that if you have a Bachelor of Science in nursing, that the patient outcomes for those they're caring for are better than if you have a lesser degree. It's safer patient care, fewer errors, less expensive health care, fewer hospital stays, and fewer complications. And so we have to do a good job, I think, of explaining in lay language the value of the science, the value of what we're learning. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, thank you. And if I may follow up just quickly, that fact that Marla listed earlier, the zip code of where a child is born often is the most important determinant of their success on traditional metrics later in life. There's a lot of factors behind that, but one of that is education, and the way we support public education in the US largely through property taxes, which really vary from place to place, is a major determinant. So I would say this is true for supporting education, or the lack thereof, in a consistent, systematic way across the board plays a role, and STEM education is one of the factors in that. And it's essential that we do this throughout a child's growth and development trajectory, which helps us then add to that at the higher education level. So if we are training individuals in architecture to build buildings that will withstand, a 6 Richter scale earthquake or a Category 5 storm or fire, whatever, all of these starts at the basic level with education in STEM, but also broader understanding of how societies and places work. So it's essential that we see it as a full spectrum and the critical role that higher education plays in it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We are at time, but just a quick lightning round. I'm going to go through and start with you, Arnab, and we'll go down. And Mike, I hope you can answer this as well. What are you currently reading, or what recommendation do you have for our audience today on something that they could read? A little fun lightning round to take away.
Well, currently I'm actually reading a young adult fiction called Holes. I don't know if any of you have read it, but I have a daughter who's 12, and she recommended it, and it's been a really fun read. Yeah.
Stanley Yelnats, right? Yes, okay. I'm reading the delightful collection of short stories called The Elephant Vanishes by Hiraku Murakami. So, highly recommend.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't even remember the name of the book that I'm reading. But actually, over the holiday break, our son was visiting, and we watched a movie that featured, that showcased the life of Jesse Brown, who was a pilot in the Korean War. And there was a movie about it, and so I'm now reading the book, and it's a really great story about teamwork, about a African-American man who was one of the first pilots, and how he was very gracious and highly skilled, and sadly gave his life for our country. And so it's been a meaningful read.
Yeah, I'm reading Ready Player One right now. But if I had to recommend a book, I would actually recommend Love Your Enemies by Arthur Brooks. It's a brilliant book, and it's talking about contempt in the United States. And I think it would benefit everyone, no matter where you sit on any spectrum of politically. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. What a wonderful program. Thank you all so much for being here. Please join me in thanking our wonderful panelists and, of course, our wonderful moderator. Thank you so much. As a final reminder, thank you all so much for being here. It truly means the world for you to take some time out of your day to be here. There is a QR code as you exit. If you have not, please be sure to sign up for your local alumni chapter. It's free to join. There are some benefits, including half off for events like this. You get text reminders for events like this one, so be sure to sign up for your alumni chapter on the way out. And other than that, thank you so much again for being here. And as always, go Utes.
Go Utes.